He's the former military strongman who would now like the world to see him very differently, as a democratically elected leader, a statesman fighting what he calls terrorists, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah Sisi. But nobody in Egypt has ever been held accountable for this. The 2013 massacre of hundreds of unarmed protesters as they gathered in the capital, Cairo. And since then, according to international human rights groups, tens of thousands of opponents of Sisi have been imprisoned, hundreds sentenced to death. Sumaya Halawa and her 3 siblings were amongst those detained. She spent several months in jail before being released. However, her brother Ibrahim, who was only 17 years at the time, remains behind bars.
Every Cameroon needs to understand that there's more than 40,000 remain behind bars. I'm able to talk about my brother today. There's others who are not.
Sumaya is amongst hundreds of protesters who gathered outside Downing Street on the eve of Sisi's visit to London. She says Prime Minister David Cameron should never have invited the former general.
Knowing that the UK is always cares for human rights, but yet the man who arrested my brother and put him in jail for 2 years, over 2 years and a half, he's invited to the UK.
London isn't Sisi's first state visit to Europe. He's already enjoyed visits to France and more recently to Germany. European governments may say they don't approve of much of what President Sisi does at home, but they feel he provides a degree of what they call stability in a troubled region. And as Paris and Berlin think, so does London.
We should not have any illusions about government's priorities, which are usually in descending order: security, both domestically and internationally, and economically. And we also should not forget that governments usually can only look no further ahead than the next elections, which means that when they are in office, they will have to talk to the people who happen to be in power or in office in other places as well.
But it's a view that those opposed to Sisi and the Egyptian government's crackdown on dissent say is deeply flawed.
Well, this is always the argument that's used about, having relations with dictators and autocrats and benighted regimes like the El-Sisi regime. The truth is, however, the exact opposite. The reality of the crushing of the Egyptian revolution and through that the derailing of the whole Arab Spring was a massive increase in jihadism, a massive increase in terrorism, a massive increase in violence across the Middle East.
While Sisi will be getting the red carpet treatment when he meets David Cameron here at Downing Street on Thursday, there's a different type of welcoming party that will await him on the other side of the street. Protesters opposed to Sisi's visits will also be gathering once again. Their message is that a man they view as a dictator is not welcome in Britain. Jamal Elshayyal, Al Jazeera, London.